we're never satisfied. And so this idea that somehow we could become content and satisfied through this is odd to me. But yeah, that would be the only thing I could think of. I think it's weird that suicide would be something.
It's not something I thought of,
Yeah, I did too. I found that interesting. Anyone else on this idea of Satanism? Occult? Peyton's been tracking. Yeah, you can tell. Red-faced. Okay. Well, let's go on then to the final one here. Atheists, agnostics, and skeptics. Questions about the existence of God. And probably all of us, from one time or another, have had those questions. But perhaps we haven't dwelt on them or thought them out nearly as well as people who claim to be atheists, agnostics, and skeptics. All kinds of thoughts going into these three disciplines, as old as taking, the apple for the piece of fruit from the tree in the garden. Did God really say? Did God really say? So, going back to the beginning of time, we have questioned the existence of God. Skepticism in its present form developed around the 4th century before Christ. Agnosticism was advanced around the 18th century, and atheism can be seen in the 16th century. So we have kind of starting dates on when these three philosophical disciplines kind of came into being and became popular and developed some kind of organized form. So, central teachings. Atheists believe that there is no God. We know that, right? That's a pretty common definition of atheists. There just isn't. There's no God. Doesn't exist. Skeptics, on the other hand, would doubt the possibility of God. They're not going to go so far as to say that there isn't one, but it's unlikely. It's hard to imagine. And I think Christians would agree. It's hard to imagine. It is hard to imagine. Especially again, if you're not understanding this election and salvation, perhaps it's even harder to understand. If you don't have the faith, hope, and love, perhaps it's even harder to understand. And then agnostics claim that no one can know, that you cannot possibly know one way or another whether there's a God or not. It's just impossible to know. So all believe there's no rational or intellectual grounds to believe in God. Well, is faith rational? Is faith intellectual in nature? No, it's not. I mean, we get into debate now about, well, what is faith? At some point, you have to press the I believe button, right? Faith is what does Paul say? The evidence of things not seen or yet to be seen. We don't understand all the mysteries that God has in His universe. And again, at Dorcas Circle, we talked a little bit about that. How it's, there's just things we don't know. There's things that we don't understand, that we haven't been in on the discussion of. And we can make a list and carry them up when we get to heaven. I can even sit down and talk and ask them those questions. But I contend it's nice to have a little mystery in life. I'm perfectly fine with not knowing everything that God knows. I think that's even more powerful. I need to believe that there's a God who is, has things that He's chosen not to share with me. Because He's smarter than I am and knows more about it. We talked about God in the sense that not restrained by time today, that God sees the beginning and the end all at the same time. It's a hard thing to visualize, but so there are some hidden things about God things that remain hidden. God has revealed a lot of Himself to us through Scripture and through His Son and through His Spirit, and He continues to do so. But there are also hidden things. How does the bread and the wine become the body and blood? I don't know. I would say it does through faith. That's how. Right? Okay. So we might be able to agree that belief in God, faith in God, may be irrational and not highly intellectual. Nevertheless, for us, it's undeniable. We have all the evidence that we need. We don't need to do more evidence. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that. Okay, so major teachings, it's meaningless to talk about God because he is not empirically verified. Meaning that it hasn't been proven to be true, so why talk about it at all? That's illogical, I would argue. If we didn't talk about things, we'd probably still think the world's flat. You know, I mean, we have to talk about things that seem impossible in order to make sense out of them. So just not talking about God because he can't be proven doesn't seem to be a very logical argument to me. We can't know realities of God, only our perceptions of reality. I don't know, it sounds like a lot of mumbo jumbo to me. Okay, perhaps that's true. I don't really know what that means. I just think that's a lot of words. That's kind of like, can God build a rock that's too heavy for God to carry? That kind of talk. You know, it doesn't, it's kind of mumbo jumbo. God cannot exist because a loving God would never allow evil. That's certainly a question that Christians deal with. Why does God allow the tsunami to hit Japan? I mean, why does God do the things he does? Well, why does he allow them to happen? Can he stop them? Isn't it within his power to be able to stop those things? A question that we wrestle with as well. Why does God allow evil in the world? And then that God is wishful thinking or superstition. Christian connections, atheists, agnostics, and skeptics miss an important truth, and that is the truth of faith. Our certainty about God comes through faith in his word, his son, and by the power of his Holy Spirit. Questions about atheists, agnostics, and skeptics? Anybody know any of those people?
The neatest atheist I ever met was an Episcopalian minister, and he had been an atheist, and he went to the Holy Land to prove there was no God. And the end of the Easter story, he told all about his trying to prove that there wasn't. And at the end of his last words was, he's alive. And that's, I mean, it was, he said, I am the height, I was the height of an atheist. And he says, I was going to flat truth there wasn't. And he said, I tell you now, there was a whole group of them here in Bozeman. And when I was about their age, our minister told us, he said, an atheist is a person, somebody looking for God. But they don't realize it.
What's that? Takes more faith to be an atheist. I don't have much faith. I could never be an atheist.
But the faith that this man found, he said, and it was just one of the best Easter things that I ever heard.
You were saying you never find an atheist in the foxhole?
It's been said before. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, why do I need a God when we could, right? I mean, I can give myself all the credit. Somebody said that's the difference between luck and a blessing. Luck is just a blessing, but it doesn't have anything to do with God.
Like good culture?
Yeah. And there are dramatic conversion stories like the one that Sherry talks about. I've known several people who have had dramatic conversion stories. Most of us don't have those. Most of us don't have those Paul stories, where God knocks us off our camels and strikes us blind for 4 days and puts scales on our eyes and those kinds of things. Most of us have conversion experiences like Lydia or something where it just kind of happens and God kind of works slowly and behind the scenes that open our hearts and our minds and that's what we're most familiar with. But yeah, the dramatic stories are fun to hear. Could Cooper, did you hear any of those dramatic stories of women of faith? Was there some testimony that some people give their conversion stories, how they came to know Jesus? Yeah. Yeah, that's those kinds of things.
What's sad is how it seems like a lot of young families are too busy for Christianity or any sort of faith, and it's all sounds like Easter bunnies. And when you're in the schools, there's very few good Christian kids unless they have parents that, you know, lead them right. There's just so many people that are just lost.
There are, and if they're too busy for God, why are? But they don't seem to be too busy for Santa Claus and Easter.
Right, right.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, it's hard to explain to your kids when they go to school every day, and other kids don't understand anything, because they've never been taught it.
True. Well, and we're all at a different place too.
Right.
All of us are at a different place in our journey, and you know, that street goes both ways. The people that don't have that faith are looking at us thinking we're crazy. What are those people doing? Why are they ruining their Sunday mornings and their Wednesday evenings by, you know, doing this kind of crazy stuff? But I think that a lot of us that are farther along our journeys have that same judgment. We look back and go, why aren't those people coming to church on Sunday and here on Wednesday night? So there's this, you know, and it's just because we're at a different place. And when people don't respond to the gospel of Jesus Christ, the only response is really sadness. I mean, it doesn't do you any good to get mad. It doesn't do you any good to get frustrated. It doesn't do you any good to do anything but just, you know, it breaks my heart. That's what it does. But I don't have the power to fix it. That's a God problem. God's.
I mean, even the legislation, everybody it seems is against it. Take that out of the pledge of allegiance and everything else.
But I think that's a minority, though. I think that's, you know, a minority of people that would like to see it. I don't know why it offends people. I mean, I don't even understand that whole argument about how that would offend people. I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses, for instance, don't salute the flag. They don't say the Pledge of Allegiance, okay? But they don't lobby to have it taken out either. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. I mean, I know the Muslims have Christmas trees, and Jews that have Christmas trees, right? And Easter bunnies. You know, Jews have Easter bunnies. I mean, well, I don't know why that should offend people. I mean, it seems a little bit ridiculous, but, you know, there's a few people that just, I think they just want to cause trouble. Yeah, I mean, just leave it alone already, you know. I don't know, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get it all the time, Steve. I mean, I you know, I've heard all the excuses. All of them. And I just think, why are you telling me these excuses? First of all, you don't owe me an explanation. You know, but yeah, I mean, you know, I'll hear your confession if that's what you're doing, but you have to make your own choices in life. And we all place things ahead of God all the time. All the time. Even the most pious of us put things ahead of our God. Okay, well, I put the Christian connections on these today because they're not going to be here next week. But I did do another table for you for Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormonism. And on the back there's a worksheet that we can spend some time, the rest of our time on that. We got 15 minutes, so go to your worksheet, the hope we have. You might need a Bible. Question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4. You guys can do whatever question you want to do.